Hey YouTube, I wanted to put out a quick video today, just detailing all of the rumors, questions, and concerns that have been coming up non-stop, especially in the last few days as it relates to the disappearance of Riley Strain. I'd also like to answer a list of questions that a news station sent to detectives, or at least answer as many as I can, to try and help bridge the gap between the community at large and the police, hopefully shedding some light on why things have and are being done as they are. If you missed it, check out my most recent video covering Riley's disappearance. If you're up to date, hopefully you get some value out of this video. If you're new here, consider subscribing, as I post true crime related topics weekly, at the least. Before we begin, I need to remind you all that these are just my own thoughts and opinions, based on my own experiences in the field. These are not the views of any department or organization, and I personally have nothing to do with this current investigation. With all that said, let's get into it. I want to start by asking for us to be in prayer with the family, and if you're in a position to, offering them support in this time. I'll be praying with you guys, and still hoping against hope for a good ending. If you guys have been following this case, then you know there's been an absolute flood of information, coming out every hour on the hour. In recent days, many have begun to question whether police are taking the investigation seriously enough, and the family themselves, totally understandably, is venting their frustrations to the news and anyone who will listen, desperate for answers. This prompted a local media outlet, Fox 17, to send a list of questions to the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department, or MNPD, asking questions about their actions as the investigation began, and questions about their own policies and procedures. I'll show the email here, which I'll leave up on the screen as I'm answering these questions. Now again, I am not a representative of the MNPD, and I don't know what their specific policies and procedures are, so some of these questions I won't be able to answer. I'll do my best though to answer any that I can, hopefully to bring a little more understanding to this case. Let's start with the first question, which reads as follows. Why was a detective not assigned to Riley Strain's case until Monday, about 48 hours after he went missing? Okay, so just to start, let's first remember that police were not even notified about Riley's disappearance until Saturday after 1 p.m., about 16 hours after he was last seen. Now, I want to list a few criteria that most agencies use to determine whether a police detective immediately responds or will respond at a later date. Please remember that police officers and detectives are not the ones responsible for making these policies, but they rather are adapted based on federal and state agencies, as well as policies drafted by the chiefs of police and sheriffs. So, a detective will generally not immediately respond to investigate a report of a missing person if the person went missing under what is considered ordinary circumstances. For instance, let's say a few friends go out drinking and get drunk. One of the friends leaves early and walks away, and is not seen at home when all the friends return several hours later. We will take a report of that person as a missing person, and the patrol officer may also go out and check the area for them, after issuing a BOLO, or a be on the lookout for the person and their last known clothing description. In addition, patrol officers will stay vigilant for anyone matching the description all shift, and they're normally discussed during roll calls. But so when do detectives get involved? In the scenario above, this would be considered a normal circumstance if the person routinely drank with friends. Note that there's nothing unusual about the circumstances. No indication the person was hurt or was being followed. No threats having been made either. You see, in order for a person to be considered endangered as a missing person, more is required. For instance, does the person now have, or in the past, ever had any known or diagnosed mental illnesses? What about suicidal tendencies? Any known mental deficiencies or traumatic brain injuries? Did the person make any threats before they left, either about themselves or others? Were they involved in any altercations or fights beforehand? Is there any indication whatsoever that the person was in trouble or the victim of a crime? Was he being followed by either a person or a car? Had he just been the victim of violence or crime beforehand? Was he injured? I want you to compare those questions to what we know about Riley's case. But, and this is a big but, I want you to, based on those criteria, evaluate his case as the police knew about it at the time of the report. Prior to any camera footage being released, before this whole media circus began, before they had any cell phone pings or witnesses. The truth, based on my own experiences, is that at the time of the report, Riley just did not meet the criteria to be qualified as an endangered missing person, or a missing person who, based on the circumstances surrounding their disappearance, is in danger of harm or loss of life. So, in summary, this is why a detective, in my eyes, was not immediately assigned or called out to investigate the scene as soon as the report was taken. There are a lot of other reasons for this, as it generates a lot of overtime to have a detective come out to investigate the dozens or even hundreds of missing person reports they get. In many cases, the person returns back home on their own in a day or so. Manpower is also a major issue, and has been since I got hired on in 2014. A massive amount of officers have retired or just outright quit and moved on to different careers. And can you really blame them? Not to mention the mass calls to defund an already undermanned and under-equipped police force. This is nationwide. This had and will still have lasting effects into the future, mark my words. Remember that detectives cannot just drop everything they're doing to investigate one call, in case it turns out to be serious. I'm sure an agency this size is investigating hundreds of other reports, from missing people, death investigations like the body they just recovered the other day, burglaries, robberies, thefts, batteries, assaults, shootings, and so on and so on. If you guys want to change the way this is done, by all means, please petition to change it. But that is going to require a lot more money for hiring, retention, and training, and I would gladly welcome that. On that note, in today's world, you could trip and fall into a job as a police officer. I highly encourage anyone to be the change they want to see, and join on to make things better. So, next question. Why was the owner of the downtown smoke or vape shop not questioned initially by police? I can't answer this question, as I do not know if this person has been spoken to since or not, and it appears the media is wondering the same. If this is the same person I saw being interviewed in a news clip and claiming the police had not spoken with them, they really didn't have that much to say about the situation anyway, it seemed. But again, I'm not going to be able to answer this. So we'll move on to question 3. Why did several days pass before search crews hit the riverbanks, including with canines? Crews didn't search the riverbanks until Wednesday, with urban rescue crews searching on Thursday. And then they asked police to confirm their timeline for this. So, if this case was investigated Monday, with most of the news footage, and correct me if I'm wrong here, seeming to start rolling out around Tuesday or Wednesday, then the searching of the riverbanks made sense on Wednesday. This question also ties in with the answer to question number 8, I believe. Number 8 asks, was an emergency order sought from a judge for access to Riley's Apple Watch and phone? We understand a subpoena was issued, but believe this information could have been obtained sooner through an emergency order. Let's take a look at what detectives had to say regarding their behind-the-scenes work, such as warrants, and it will help answer question 8 in a bit.
In regards to, we've had questions about some of the behind-the-scenes things we're doing, search warrants, that kind of thing. Please understand it's an open investigation. We cannot share that information with the public because it's an open investigation. It can, if it were to turn into a criminal investigation, well, obviously now we're negatively impacting that situation. So please understand, if you call us and you're asking us questions, there may be some things we cannot answer, and it's to maintain the integrity of the investigation, as well as any potential evidence should there be a criminal component to it.
I agree with him 100%. He is absolutely correct in keeping those details quiet to protect the integrity of a possible future criminal investigation. But let me offer my thoughts on it anyway for you guys. As I understand it, the ping of Riley's phone was the major decider in making an educated determination that Riley was still within a 2-mile radius of the area he disappeared in, which would include the nearby river and riverbanks. Before that, we had no real idea where Riley went, just the general direction he took before the camera footage seems to run out. But with the knowledge that he reportedly encountered a homeless encampment, and also the knowledge of the steep riverbanks, the news that his phone stopped pinging shortly after his disappearance in that area is worrying. Remember, that ping covers a distance of around 2 miles reportedly. So I believe that ping probably came back later Tuesday or Wednesday, which is what prompted the searching of the rivers and nearby areas with increasing intensity. Let me answer question 8 here to give a bit more clarity. So, generally speaking in Florida, an emergency order is attempting to reach out to a phone company and detailing to them why you want them to ping the phone and what the circumstances are that cause you to believe it's an emergency and that the person is in immediate danger. Even if it's through a court order, it will not be granted if you cannot articulate that the person is in immediate danger. You have to be able to explain why. If you don't have that, most phone companies will not work with you. So what you do instead is get a subpoena with the state attorney, which takes longer, but works in circumstances where you can't articulate that the person is actually endangered, like we spoke about above. Because of this, police got the ping information later than they might have on an emergency order. This likely prompted the beginning of the more intensive search Wednesday and Thursday. Again, I don't have personal knowledge of this case, I'm just inferring based on what's been reported and what I know from my experience here in Florida. Question 4 asks, why were dive teams not deployed until Saturday? I'm going to make an assumption that the person asking is correct and that dive teams hadn't responded before that. But if I had to guess, I would think it could possibly be due to environmental circumstances, such as severely strong river currents. But I'm not 100% on this, as normally that would be immediately reported by police. However, on Wednesday the teams were searching with sonar and boats as I understand it, and so perhaps the dive teams weren't thought to be needed. Also, understand this, when people call us out to search for somebody in a body of water, we are not looking for a survivor. We are looking for a body. I say that so everyone knows that it's not a matter of saving somebody's life if the police divers come out fast enough, but more so a matter of recovering a body. Also, it is extremely hard to search for a human drowning victim in most bodies of water with a current, and I can say this from experience. In many cases, you can miss it due to poor visibility underwater as well as those strong currents, and there's not much to do except wait for the person to surface, once the decomposition gases make them buoyant enough, sadly. Question number 5 states, after the debit card was discovered Sunday, why was the area roped off and an intensive search conducted? I'm hoping this is a result of a typo, because this question does not make sense to me. She's asking why, after a missing person's debit card was discovered, the area was roped off and searched heavily? Obviously in the hope of finding other items, hopefully of evidentiary value. I don't know if she meant to ask why the area wasn't roped off and searched, but this question seems a bit obvious to me. Sorry if I misunderstood it. Also, great job by these girls in finding the card. Question 6 is asking for a response from the department directly, and I really don't have the information to comment on this one. Question 7 asks why the body cam footage of the officer's very brief interaction with Riley was not released until 10 days later. Let me show you the body camera footage here, so you can see how brief it was. And in the detective's own words, here's why it was released when it was.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
One of the concerns people have called in multiple times about is that Riley was being chased, he was being followed. We have seen no evidence of that. We've been through the video multiple times, and that is the reason why we released that body camera footage, because that officer had an interaction with him, and we've talked to other people that have indicated to us there was no injuries on Mr. Strain when they observed him, and there was no indication that he was running from anything or he was in fear. There's been a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misinformation out there, and we're putting out everything we can to dispel all of those misconceptions.
So I hope I was able to answer some of those questions, guys. If you have any questions or want me to explain something in more detail, ask in the comments, and I'll do my best if I can. But I wanted to speak briefly on some of the new updates in the case, and some rumors that are floating around. Firstly, Riley's debit card. Now, some have asked how this was missed, including reporters. I think one of Riley's family members said it best, stating that police, family, and volunteers have all been up and down that area for days on end, and he wonders how it was missed. I have a few suggestions. The department claims that when they were searching that area, they were searching for a body or evidence of injury or a struggle, to try and narrow down the search zone. So it's possible that this debit card was just missed. Here's what they say about it, and his analogy of dealing with the big elements of a crime scene first before looking for the small ones is very true in police work.
It's been mentioned already today, and it's also been asked, things like why was that card found and why didn't we find it? As Mr. Flagg pointed out, there's a lot of variables in these investigations, and if you've not been skilled or trained or experienced in these investigations, you don't understand a lot of these things. As Don Aaron put out the other day, when we start a missing person investigation, we're looking for a person, we're looking for a body. We're not looking for small pieces of evidence. Can we miss some things? Sure. But our primary goal is to find Mr. Strain and bring him home safely. Think of it like a large crime scene. A lot of times you have to deal with the victims first before you can go back and start looking for those precise pieces of evidence. Okay, that's kind of our focus here. We're looking for Mr. Strain, then we go back and look again. And because these two ladies over here were kind enough to volunteer their time and helped us by finding that, now we can do a more refined search with our urban search and rescue, which is what they're going to be doing this afternoon. And as Mr. Flagg said,
if I was playing devil's advocate, another possibility could be that it was blown around, considering it's a very small card and definitely lightweight enough to be blown by the wind, winding up in another area. But moving on to another question people have asked, especially one being asked by the family, why won't the police change it to a criminal case? This all goes back to criteria. To change a missing person to a criminal case, we have to have some proof or reasonable belief that the person missing is in danger, or is possibly hurt or deceased due to the actions of another, such as foul play. This family states that the finding of his card in an already searched area should be enough to reclassify this. But, like I said above, there are possible other reasons for that, such as it being missed or blown around. Ideally, police would probably need something strong, such as an unknown person's fingerprints or other DNA on the card. Now, the family wants this reclassified, because in these cases there are other resources available to police if the case turns criminal. But we can't just lie on these forms and make it so we have access to these resources either. We have to be able to articulate it, and it has to be approved by higher-ups, all the way up to the top of the department. So let's talk Crime Stoppers tips. During a press release today, one of the things really taking a long time to investigate are the number of tips and information that have to be vetted coming through Crime Stoppers. Let's take a look at what they say.
We're going to continue to search. We're still filtering all the Crime Stoppers tips, as Detective Chandler said. I cannot stress enough the volume of information we've gotten. We've had people get frustrated with us because they'll call us, say, on a Monday, and they don't know why we haven't gotten back to them on Monday. And I've had to explain to them, we have to weigh every piece of evidence we get, or information rather, evenly. We can't just jump to the top because, quite honestly, there's a lot of tips that we're getting that are not tips. They mean well, but they're not tips. So we have to prioritize what's actually providing information. And some of the other things I have my detectives doing today is re-canvassing the area for video. And while we don't think Riley may have been in any of these homeless camps away from this area, those are areas that we're going to be working on this afternoon ourselves.
As the detective stated, they are getting a ridiculous volume of these tips and have to verify each and every one of them. This takes time and manpower, and they already have everyone working on a case like this. When something like this goes public and blows up in the media like it has, it can actually slow down an investigation due to the number of tips, and as he states, theories that are being given. There are multiple rumors going around, so far just ones that I've read in the comments, of a vagrant seen wearing the exact same shirt as Riley, with the shirt appearing clean despite the homeless person's other dirty clothing. But I haven't been able to confirm any actual reports of that, so I can't really speak to that. To those who wonder why we haven't found Riley yet, know that he is getting more press coverage than anyone could ask for, and his name is now very widely known. Despite the police, volunteers, family, and the media, he is still not found. This should serve as proof that it is very difficult to find people sometimes, and I hope this only drives that point home. We do not have a crystal ball that helps us to locate people. Take a look at the Carly Russell case like we mentioned in our last video. Even with those very suspicious circumstances, using every resource we had, we could not find her until she came home. The search for Russell involved local, state, and federal agencies, as well as a large group of volunteers that were organized by her parents. We had multiple pictures of her going around all over the media, and a reward totaling at least $50,000 was offered for her safe return, which included $20,000 from an anonymous source, $5,000 by Crime Stoppers, and $25,000 from a real estate company, Kellner Williams. And she still stayed missing for about 49 hours until she herself returned home. Despite what TV shows us, it is very difficult to find missing people, and always has been. But that's all for now, anyway. I hope this helped answer some questions the community may have. I know not everyone will agree or like these answers, but at least there's something out there. Again, I'm totally open to change in policies and better staffing, including more detectives if the funding is there. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. I just ask that you guys keep it respectful with each other and continue to pray for Riley's safe return. And as always guys, stay safe and stay tuned.